Welcome to the Full Moon TV Buff, episode 12. We're going to talk about Spice and Wolf, which aired from 2008 to 2009. I watched this on Crunchyroll, and I had not seen this before. As always, we start with the prominent crew and cast. You can always find links to a more complete credit list in the show notes. This is based on manga that was written by Asuna Hasakura. The scripts were by Naruhisa Arakawa, and it was directed by Takeo Takahashi. Asuna Hasakura debuted in 2006 when Spice and Wolf won the Dengeki Novel Prize. Spice and Wolf sold millions of copies worldwide, spawned an anime, and the 2024 remake, Spice and Wolf, Merchant Meets the Wise Wolf, manga adaptations, video games, and light novel sequels. Naruhisa Arakawa began his career in the anime industry in the late 90s. He served as series composer and head writer for both seasons of Spice and Wolf, shaping the show's distinctive blend of economic intrigue, philosophical dialogue, and slow burn romance. Beyond Spice and Wolf, Arakawa has written over 100 anime and tokusatsu series, none of which I personally recognize. Takeo Takahashi began his career in the anime industry in the early 2000s. He made his directorial debut with PETA 10, but his first series director job came with Spice and Wolf, where he directed both seasons and helped shape the series' distinctive tone. He was also involved in the art department on the 2024 remake of Spice and Wolf. The English voice regular cast includes J. Michael Tatum as Lawrence and Brenna Palencia as Holo. J. Michael Tatum is one of the most prolific and respected voice actors in anime localization. He's also a writer. Notable roles include Black Butler, Attack on Titan, My Hero Academia, Hetalia, and Ouran High School Host Club, among over 400 others. Brenna Palencia began her career in the early 90s. Palencia has voiced dozens of major series, including Black Butler, One Piece, My Hero Academia, and Sergeant Frog, among over 300 others. Notable guest stars include Christopher Sabat as Marlhite, Eric Vale as Vice and additional voices, Jamie Marchi as Chloe, John Bergmeister as Zarin, Monica Riel as Myrta, Jonathan Freeman as Batos, billed as Jonathan Brooks. Christopher Sabat got his start in the late 80s and early 90s on Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. He continues to do Dragon Ball to this day, and it's probably what he's most well known for, but not the only thing he's known for. Other iconic series include Lupin III, Full Metal Alchemist, Sergeant Frog, Ghost in the Shell, Attack on Titan, One Piece, and My Hero Academia. Eric Vale also got his start on Dragon Ball Z, a series he continues to be a part of. Other major series include One Piece, My Hero Academia, and Fruits Basket. Jamie Marchi has voiced dozens of iconic roles, including Panty Anarchy in Panty and Stocking with a Garter Belt, Rias Gremory in High School DxD, and Mount Lady in My Hero Academia. John Bergmeister is best known for his long-running series of roles in various Dragon Ball series. Bergmeister began voice acting in the late 90s. Other notable roles include Fruits Baskets, Yu Yu Hakusho, and Full Metal Alchemist. Monica Rial has more than 700 credits. Her voice acting career began in the late 80s, and iconic roles include Black Butler, Full Metal Alchemist, One Piece, My Hero Academia, and Fairy Tail. Jonathan Freeman is best known as Jafar in Disney's Aladdin and its subsequent adaptations. Freeman appeared in Broadway productions like She Loves Me and The Robber Bridegroom and 42nd Street. Beyond Aladdin, Freeman voiced characters in Shining Time Station, House of Mouse, and the Kingdom Hearts video game series. I want to note that he was a Muppet performer in the Muppet movie. I love this show, and I absolutely recommend it, but I get that it's not for everybody. It's a dialogue-driven fantasy with romance that builds slowly, and it includes economics lessons that never felt boring to me personally, but the action is minimal, and many would find plot details based on economic theory incomprehensible. Holo absolutely meets my definition of a werewolf, but the show isn't primarily concerned with her lycanthropy. Skip this if you want constant action or big battles. Even when there is action, it's stealth and pursuit, not fight scenes. It's all talk, travel, and tension. So let's cover the premise. In a medieval-inspired world, traveling merchant Craft Lawrence encounters Holo, a centuries-old wolf harvest deity tired of her isolated village life. She strikes a deal with him. He'll take her north to her homeland of Yoitz in exchange for her supernatural wisdom helping his trades. What follows is a slow burn road story about commerce, trust, and the clash between pagan gods and a changing monotheistic world. So let's cover those core characters. Craft Lawrence is a 25-year-old traveling merchant. When he was 12, he became an apprentice and set out on his own at 18. His goal is to gather enough money to establish his own shop, and he's been gaining experience in the trade. Although Lawrence is emotionally restrained, he falls in love with Holo as they travel and spend time together. He shows his affection through his actions, such as when Holo gets captured by the church and Lawrence completely panics. He also gets jealous whenever other men flirt or show affection for Holo, especially Amarty. Holo is a female wolf harvest deity from the northern land of Yoitz, reminiscent of the mythic Hyperborea. She promised Pazlo's farmers bountiful annual wheat harvests, but over time the townspeople deemed her unnecessary and resented the poor harvest essential for resting the land. Feeling forsaken, Holo escapes Pazlo, hidden in Lawrence's wagon, traveling with him to observe the world's changes after her long stay. She appears as a 15-year-old girl with a large white-tipped wolf tail, ears, sharp fangs, and an ear-shattering howl. Her true form is a massive, fearsome wolf that speaks human language. Holo craves delicious food and alcohol, especially new treats like apples to eels in each story, and takes pride in grooming her beloved tail. She calls herself Holo the Wise Wolf. Typically haughty and self-sufficient, her centuries of isolation in Pazlo made her lonely and vulnerable underneath. She relies on Lawrence's company to combat that loneliness. Acutely aware that a human lifetime is fleeting to her kind, she fears their eventual separation but masks it with jokes. Initially teasing about her feelings for Lawrence, she does gradually fall deeply in love with him. By the series' end, they have settled down together and have a daughter, Muri, who inherits her mother's wolf traits and becomes the protagonist of the sequel, Wolf in Parchment. Chloe is a villager from Pazlo who has known Lawrence for a long time. In fact, Lawrence taught her how to be a merchant. She had a romantic interest in Lawrence, but pushed those feelings away. She still respects him as her teacher and a good friend. Their friendship is broken when Chloe allies with the church to capture Holo, an obsession that slowly takes a toll on her sanity. Nora Arendt is a skilled, beautiful, and humble young shepherd from a church town named Leubenhagen. Her companion is a well-trained sheepdog named Enoch. Lawrence entrusts her with the difficult task of gold smuggling. Lawrence might be attracted to Nora, but that is never made perfectly clear. Holo gets jealous whenever Lawrence and Nora interact with each other, even though the girls do reconcile and become friends later on. Nora eventually gains enough funds to emancipate herself from the church. Fermi Amati is a young man who works as a fish broker. Like Lawrence, he goes by his surname. He becomes smitten with Holo and proposes to her. He believes her to be a gentle, kind girl. After listening to Holo's fake story of being Lawrence's traveling companion due to her owing him a huge debt, Amati attempts to buy her liberty and win Holo over by publicly declaring a contractual deal with Lawrence and the merchants. However, he loses almost everything emotionally and financially after a pyrite price crash and Holo's dedication to Lawrence. Due to the methods in which he has built his fortune, Amati looks down on the connections and acquaintances forged by other merchants and believes it's shameful to make use of such connections to secure a deal. Diane Rubens, aka Diana, is a chronicler living within Kumerson's walled ghetto with other suspect persons such as alchemists. She first appeared in volume 3 of the novels. She collects pagan tales and beliefs and has compiled them into a set of books. Lawrence asks her for information about Holo's birthplace, Yoitz. Since Diane sounds like a masculine name, she goes by Diana. According to Holo, Diane is not human, but a bird bigger than Lawrence. She fell in love with a traveling priest and spent a few years helping him build a church, but left because he noticed that she never seemed to grow old and became suspicious. Her influence is vast, and she protects those living in the ghetto. Her true appearance and the extent of her animal features are unknown. Mark Cole is a town merchant and wheat seller in Kumerson. He and his apprentice assist Lawrence in his conflict with Amati. Mark is roughly 10 years older than Lawrence and proud of his little shop and family. He strives to protect his good reputation for their sake, though he does go to great lengths to help Lawrence in any way that he can. He is also the first merchant in a long while that Lawrence comes to accept as a true friend and not just as a business associate. Eve Boland is a mysterious merchant from the port town of Linos. She is a fallen noble who was once sold as a bride to another merchant after her family's misfortunes. She slowly laundered money from him, and when he killed himself, she started her own business. She is naturally wary and goes about her trade dressed as a man. Although hard to approach, Eve is talkative under the right circumstances and has a keen eye for people and business alike. She organized a secret smuggling operation within the church, and after leaving it, made a contract with Lawrence. Her real name is Fleur von Eidersenthal Mariel Boland. So now we're going to go over the episodes, starting with Season 1, Episode 1, Wolf in Best Clothes. Kraft Lawrence, a 25-year-old traveling merchant, arrives at the town of Pazlo during its pagan harvest festival. But this may be the last time they hold it. New farming techniques championed by the local earl mean that the village doesn't rely on praying to the wolf goddess. Lawrence encounters Chloe, a former student who's playing the part of Holo, said wolf goddess, in the festival's ritual hunt. That night, Lawrence finds a naked young woman hiding in his wagon. She has wolf ears, a tail, fangs, and howls at the moon. She claims to be the legendary wolf deity Holo from the northern village of Yoitsu. She wants to travel with him. Lawrence demands that she prove who she really is. So Holo returns to her wolf form and disappears. Back in town, Lawrence meets up with Chloe. She asks to be his business partner, but he declines, telling her that she's too young to make such a risky move. After leaving the town, Lawrence runs into Holo again and learns that she escaped Paslo so she can visit Yoitz again. Lawrence agrees to let her accompany him on his travels. Episode 2, Wolf and Distant Past. Lawrence and Holo shelter from the rain inside a church. They meet a young man named Zarin, who tells Lawrence of a plan to trade old Trenny silver coins for new ones and profit off their different metal content. Holo knows Zarin is lying, though they don't know why. The next day, Lawrence agrees to meet with Zarin in the port city of Pazio to discuss further plans. After departing with Holo, Lawrence recounts how he was attacked by wolves about 8 times in the forest. Holo defends the wolf's actions, and Lawrence flares up in anger. After a lull in the conversation, Lawrence asks Holo if she has ever eaten a human, a question she refuses to answer. Episode 3, Wolf and Business Talent. Lawrence and Holo arrive in Pazio. Holo buys apples, which leave a scent on the furs. As a result, Lawrence and Holo sell the furs for a much higher price to the Malone Trading Company. That night, Lawrence and Holo meet up with Zarin and finalize their partnership. The following day, when Lawrence sees his old friend Weiss, the pair learn that the purity in the Trenny silver coins has decreased, contrary to Zarin's claims. Holo draws some comparisons between hunting and trading. Episode 4, Wolf and her helpless partner. Lawrence enlists Rickton Marlheit, the branch manager of the Malone Trading Company, to help counter Zarin's scheme to destabilize the silver market. However, Zarin has associates from the Medio Trading Company who ambush Lawrence and Holo that night. Lawrence and Holo escape, but Holo acts as a diversion so Lawrence can get to safety. She gets caught. Later, Marlheit tells Lawrence the Malone Trading Company has all the information needed to defeat Zarin's plan and no longer needs Lawrence and Holo. To compound their problems, a letter arrives from the Medio Trading Company informing Lawrence that they know Holo is a wolf, and they are prepared to hand her over to the church. Wolf and Lover's Quarrel, Episode 5. After negotiating with Marlheit, Lawrence strikes a deal, convincing Marlheit to quickly gather Trenny silver coins to obtain economic advantage, while he stealthily rescues Holo from the Medio Trading Company's prison. Once free, Holo tells Lawrence that Chloe has joined forces with the church and intends to turn Holo over to break away from the past, where people depended upon the favor of deities like Holo to survive. Holo is heartbroken to know that the villagers don't want her anymore. Lawrence points out that this means that she truly is free. Episode 6, Wolf and Silent Farewell. Holo unleashes a howl, driving off pursuing hounds. A Medio Trading Company pursuer stabs Lawrence, which allows Chloe to eventually trap him and Holo. She tries to convince Lawrence to hand over Holo. First, she entices him with profit and reward. Then, she threatens to kill him, but he still refuses. To protect Lawrence, Holo bites him. His blood transforms her into her giant wolf form, and she rampages through the pursuers. Holo nearly kills Chloe, but spares her. Holo disappears as Lawrence blacks out. Lawrence awakens later in the Malone Trading Company headquarters. He is informed that while Malone made vast profits on the scheme, there were also high costs in the venture. Lawrence takes his payment in pepper, but also receives a bill for new clothes and apples. After realizing that that means that Holo is still around, Lawrence reunites with her, and they agree to continue their travels together. Episode 7, Wolf and a Tale of Happiness. While still in Pazio, Lawrence introduces Holo to baked apples. He decides to purchase a set of winter clothes for Holo. However, Lawrence only has a Luminion gold coin, too large a denomination to purchase clothes. They return to Weiss and exchange it for Trenny silver coins. Lawrence uses an advanced technique to buy Holo's new clothes, once worn by a noble, from a clothing shop owner. He first buys cheap clothes to build a relationship, so he can buy the expensive clothes at a discount, made even cheaper by Holo's charm. Then they sell the cheap clothes at another store. Episode 8, Wolf and Virtuous Scales. Lawrence and Holo travel to Porosan, where Lawrence sells the pepper. During the exchange, Holo exposes the shop owner of the Lapparan Trading Company's attempt to swindle Lawrence. Lawrence uses the information to barter a great deal on armor in exchange for not reporting him. While traveling to Lubenhagen, Lawrence and Holo discuss how much he will make off the martial gear and the risks of smuggling gold. They pass a group of travelers who warn them of mercenaries from the north. Taking a detour, they encounter a female shepherd, though Holo is suspicious because of the instinctive hostility between shepherds and wolves, although this really does feel like a one-sided rivalry. Episode 9, Wolf and the Shepherd's Lamb. Just before Lawrence departs, the shepherd, named Nora Arendt, asks him to hire her as an escort to protect the party from wolves. Holo reluctantly agrees, and Lawrence does so, and the group heads off towards Leubenhagen. Lawrence and Nora get to know each other, while Holo remains aloof. Nora works for the church, but would rather work for herself. Upon arrival, Lawrence and Holo part ways with Nora and set off to sell the armor. Lawrence passes the entrance inspection and pays the tax with 2 sets of armor. Lawrence and Holo head to the Rowan Trading Guild, where he is a member and is greeted warmly inside. Episode 10, Wolf and the Swirling Plot. Lawrence procures a certificate from the guild manager named Jacob Tarantino and goes to the Lemurio Trading Company to sell his armor. To his horror, he discovers the armor market has crashed and that he now holds a very large debt and worthless goods. Hans Lemurio issues Lawrence an ultimatum to pay back the debt in 2 days or he will be rendered bankrupt, a huge financial setback. He desperately searches for merchants willing to lend him money. Everyone turns him down and he becomes increasingly frustrated. He learns that the merchants are refusing to help him because of his improper relationship with the young lady, Holo. In anger, he blames her. Lawrence immediately tries to apologize, but Holo returns to the inn alone. Episode 11, Wolf and the Biggest Secret Scheme. Lawrence has nowhere near enough money to repay his debts. He attempts to apologize to Holo again for his earlier behavior, but she chides Lawrence for being too nice and not blaming her for his situation. She thinks she is responsible. They reconcile. Desperate, the pair returns to Lemurio and proposes smuggling gold to pay the debt off. Since the Lemurio Trading Company is struggling, it is also pressed for money, hence why they are strong-arming Lawrence in the first place. Holo drives a hard bargain, and he agrees with their scheme. Lawrence and Holo meet with Nora and tell her their plan. Knowing that gold sells at a high price in church-controlled cities compared to pagan cities, they plan to purchase gold in Lamtra, smuggle the gold back in Nora's sheep's stomachs, and sell the gold for immense profits in Leubenhagen. Nora agrees to the plan. Episode 12, Wolf and a Group of Youngsters. Martin Liebert, a businessman of the Lemurio Trading Company, accompanies Lawrence, Holo, and Nora as they set off on their gold smuggling mission. In the forest, wolves attack them. Nora keeps them at bay. After arriving at Lamtra, Liebert enters the city and obtains a bag of gold. The group begin their return trip. During a rainstorm, wolves, led by a giant alpha wolf, pursue them. Lawrence instructs Nora and Liebert to go ahead. Lawrence leaves as well so that Holo can deal with the wolves herself. He waits for her near the edge of the forest. While doing so, 3 men from the Lemurio Trading Company, who plan to steal the smuggling profits for themselves, attack Lawrence and leave him tied up for the wolves to take care of. Episode 13, Wolf and a New Beginning. Holo reunites with Lawrence. She confirms that she had to bow to the Alpha to deal with the wolves. She chides him again for being too nice and protecting her clothes instead of running away on his own. After being told of Liebert's betrayal, Holo transforms into wolf form. With Lawrence riding on her back, she catches up to their betrayers and Nora, who is oblivious to the betrayal and their plan to murder her. Holo routs the men, but spares Liebert, who reveals that Lemurio betrayed them at the very beginning because Lawrence was demanding too much of the profit. Lawrence rejects stealing the gold outright and uses this information to blackmail Lemurio, extorting 500 Lumioin gold coins over a period of 10 years. Lawrence does allow them to use the smuggled gold to save their company from bankruptcy. After reassuring Holo of his devotion, Lawrence continues on his journey with her. The end of Season 1, moving into Season 2, Episode 14, Wolf and Amber Melancholy. This is apparently a recap OVA that I could not find anywhere. Luckily, I just gave you a recap, so we can just move on. Episode 14, Wolf and the Inadvertent Rift. Lawrence and Holo travel to Kummersen, where a pagan festival is taking place. Attempting to buy fish, they meet Fermi Amati, a young merchant and fellow member of the Lohan Trading Guild. Amati, who falls for Holo at first sight, helps them get a room in the guild. That evening, Holo drinks way too much and wakes up with a hangover the next morning. Lawrence sells iron nails in his cart to Mark Cole in a haggling session, a wheat seller and friend. That night, Lawrence asks Holo a few questions about the location of Yoitz and calculates that it might not be an easy trip. Lawrence considers whether they should split up once they reach the town of Noyanhira, since Holo could reach Yoitz in 2 days' travel from there on her own. He immediately regrets making Holo feel slightly unwanted. Episode 16, Wolf and the Calm Before the Storm. Instead of taking Holo to the festival as planned, Lawrence gets Amati to take her. Fellow merchant Guy Batos takes Lawrence to meet Diana Rubens, a chronicler, to learn more about Yoites. She tells Lawrence two legends, one about a moon-hunting bear that destroyed Yoites, and another about a large wolf near the town of Lenos, calling herself Holo of Yoites. Lawrence tells her the story of him and Holo so far. Later, Lawrence becomes jealous of Amati, fearing that the young man may be trying to steal Holo away. The next morning, Holo reveals that she lied to Amati, saying that she travels with Lawrence because she owes him a large debt for saving her. She also recounts how Amati and a crowd of other festival goers haggled over pieces of pyrite being sold by a traveling fortune teller, greatly inflating the price. Mark, Cole's apprentice, suddenly arrives at the inn and tells Lawrence something, prompting Lawrence to sprint out. Episode 17, Wolf and the Gap That Cannot Be Filled. In front of the Rowan Trading Guild, Amati challenges Lawrence, proclaiming to pay Holo's falsified debt of 1,000 Trenny silver coins, freeing her from debt bondage to Lawrence, and then proposing to her, certain that she will leave Lawrence and marry him. Holo and Lawrence spend the day enjoying the festival together. Back at the inn, Holo reads a letter for Lawrence containing an explanation of the legend about the moon-hunting bear that destroyed Yoites. Lawrence heads out and discovers that Amati's plan to pay back the debt relies on the sale of pyrite. When Lawrence returns to the inn, Holo is distraught that her home is now destroyed. She is upset that he didn't tell her sooner. She accuses him of knowing Yoites was destroyed the entire time, and he has now grown tired of her. Lawrence confesses that she means more to him than anything else. A heartbroken Holo asks him to make love to her, to prove that he genuinely does love her. When Lawrence hesitates, Holo snaps and rejects him, prompting him to leave the inn. Episode 18, Wolf and the End of Shallow Thinking. Worried Holo might accept Amati's proposal, Lawrence decides that he must ensure that Amati cannot pay off Holo's debt. He plans to crash the pyrite market, tanking Amati's net worth. After receiving information on Amati's assets and seeing Holo's signature on the marriage proposal, Lawrence proposes a credit deal shorting pyrite, which will result in profit for Amati if the price of pyrite rises, or losses if the price falls. Amati accepts the deal after Lawrence causes him to doubt Holo will agree to his marriage proposal. Mark won't help pull off this deal due to the risk of reputational costs, so Lawrence turns to Diana and the alchemists in the hope that they have a cache of pyrite that he can purchase. Episode 19, Wolf, Hope, and Despair. To gain access to the alchemist's quarter, Lawrence asks Batos for the password to meet Diana. After arriving, Lawrence is informed her pyrite has already been sold on credit. Diana agrees to sell Lawrence the pyrite instead and insists that she will handle negotiations and contact him upon their completion. Lawrence asks her if there are stories of gods marrying humans. She teases him that there are many, but doesn't tell him any. Mark gets Lawrence to finally acknowledge his feelings for Holo. Next morning, Lawrence receives 14 Lumion gold coins, equivalent to 500 Trenny silver coins, from Amati in accordance with their deal. However, the price of pyrite continues to rise, which greatly worries Lawrence. Episode 20, Wolf and Trustworthy God. Lawrence spends the day at the pyrite market, monitoring the market price. He sells his stock to combat the rising prices, but to no avail. Lawrence's plan falls apart when Diana's messenger informs him that the negotiations have failed. Lawrence gives up. But Mark's apprentice gives him a pep talk. When Lawrence sells his last bit of pyrite, Holo also sells a huge bag that she purchased from Diana, revealing that she always intended to help Lawrence from the beginning. The market panics, the price of pyrite plummets, and Amati suffers huge losses. He is devastated, fails in his challenge with Lawrence, and is forced to abandon his marriage proposal to Holo as a result. Holo and Lawrence confess their deepening feelings for each other and decide to continue traveling together to find Yoites. Episode 21, Wolf and Playful Days. Lawrence and Holo find their way to the chilly port town of Lenos, known for its wood and fur. As he enters town, Lawrence is given a foreign merchant tablet to identify him and allow him to trade in town. Intrigued by the town's history and legends, Lawrence investigates. They get a room at the local inn where the innkeeper, named Aroldo Eklund, tells them about people who might be able to help them, including a church scribe named Rigoro Deidre, who was part of an odd gathering Lawrence and Holo observed while entering town. They notice a mysterious cloaked stranger whom Lawrence misidentifies as male. Holo corrects him and chides him for having eyes for another woman. Wolf and the Enchanting Traveler. Lawrence and Holo visit the port in Lenos. Holo uses her sharp hearing to learn that foreign fur merchants are unable to sell their wares, resulting in unrest. She gets drunk and must rest. Lawrence visits a local bar and gathers information from a hostess there named Helena. He learns the entire town is on edge due to issues with the fur trade. After dinner, Lawrence talks with Aroldo about the pagan northern lands. Aroldo offers some advice. They are interrupted by the arrival of the mysterious cloaked stranger who introduces herself as Eve Boland. She and Lawrence briefly chat about business. She also gives him advice about getting in touch with Rigoro. She wants to chat more if their interests coincide. Episode 23, Wolf and Reckless Negotiation. Lawrence and Holo visit Rigoro and are at first awed by the large greenhouse behind his house. Rigoro offers Holo a few books containing old legends from the north. Lawrence and Holo spend an enjoyable night together. Holo confesses that she fears separating from Lawrence at the journey's end. After Holo goes to sleep, Lawrence chats with Aroldo and Eve about her business ventures. She surprises him by asking whether he would consider selling Holo. Episode 24, Wolf and Lonely Smile. Eve explains her plan to Lawrence. Eve is actually a noblewoman and can sell Holo's marriage rights to gain cash, which will then be used to buy the fur in town. The fur can then be sold downstream at a massive profit. She expects to triple their money, meaning that they can buy Holo back and still make a killing. Lawrence explains to Holo, who, surprisingly to me, agrees to the plan. She instructs Lawrence to use the profits to achieve his dream. Lawrence investigates around town and discovers that Eve is trading in salt and that the town church aims to become more powerful in the region. Eve's prior contact with the bishop soured, and he cut her off. Lawrence and Holo decide to go along with Eve's plan. Episode 25, Wolf and the Decision to Part. Ruse Ellingen, a representative of the Denrick Trading Company, proposes to purchase Holo with 60 Lumioin gold coins instead of 2,000 Trenny silver coins. Lawrence agrees to the offer. While celebrating the successful deal, Eve reveals she had been bought by a pathetic merchant who went bankrupt and killed himself. She urges Lawrence and Holo to cherish their time together. Back at the inn, Holo suggests that they split up after she is sold, since Lawrence will have earned enough to set up a shop. Lawrence tries to dissuade her, but she is afraid of the future and leaves him heartbroken. The next morning, they return the books to Rigoro, sharing a philosophical conversation with Myrta, a nun working for Rigoro as a librarian. Suddenly, Eve arrives and reports a coup d'etat, leaving them surrounded by a riot. Episode 26, Wolf and Endless Tears. Even in light of the rebellion, Lawrence and Eve decide to continue on with the plan. Eve goes to hire a ship, and Lawrence confesses his fear that no matter how this deal works out, it will end their companionship. He leaves Holo with the traders and receives the negotiated gold. However, when he first meets Eve at the inn, Lawrence decides not to go through with the deal. Eve threatens to kill him, since he uncovered her cunning plan about smuggling rock salt. He figured out she is behind all the fur machinations, but the church has betrayed her. He realizes that she always intended to cut him out of the fur deal. In the confrontation, Eve knocks him out. When he wakes, he finds that she left him a deed to an inn. Lawrence uses it to buy Holo back. In the face of Holo's anger, Lawrence confesses that he loves Holo. He abandons his original dream and wants to keep traveling with her. Holo hints that she is falling for Lawrence as well. They proceed to the dock in the midst of all of the chaos and bored, ready to start anew together. So let's simplify this down to the season arcs. Season 1 is the setup. Two loners learning to rely on each other while navigating trade risks. Season 2 deepens the romance, forcing both to confront jealousy, insecurity, and what home really means when you're immortal or mortal. It ends on a hopeful but open note, perfectly bittersweet. So now let's cover the werewolf lore. Holo isn't a traditional werewolf. She's a giant wolf harvest god who can take human or wolf or girl form. There's no full moon, no curses, no loss of control. She is proud of her wolf nature and uses it for intimidation or protection. The transformation is voluntary and graceful. A shimmer of light, and suddenly a massive, beautiful wolf stands where a girl was. Less horror, more divine majesty. And instead of being vulnerable to silver, Holo develops quite a fondness for silver coins. So now let's talk about economics as a theme for adventure. Most fantasy uses money as a backdrop. Gold coins for potions, treasure to drive quests, maybe a tavern scene to prove the heroes are broke. Spice and Wolf flips that. It makes medieval trade at the heart of the drama. Currency swings, supply chains, and market speculation become high-stakes tension that rivals any sword fight or dragon battle. The show is clever and respectful. It assumes that you're smart enough to keep up and never talks down to you. Every arc draws from real economics. Lawrence and Holo chase profit through devaluation schemes, short selling, auctions, early credit, and even bubbles. The stakes, money, reputation, and survival are treated as deadly serious. What lifts it higher is how economics slips naturally from the practical into the philosophical. Quiet conversations explore why we trust paper or metal over barter, how perception creates and destroys value, whether pacifism can survive profit seeking, and how credit is really faith in someone else's future. Holo offers centuries of wisdom. Lawrence brings hard-won experience. Their debates never feel like lectures. They feel like two very different people trying to understand each other while the next deal is in the wings. The dialogue honors both characters and you, the audience. And the result? A fantasy where the biggest thrills happen in a merchant's office or by a campfire and not on a battlefield. A market swing hits harder than a sword swing. Spice and Wolf proves that you don't need armies or prophecies for gripping tension, just people outsmarting each other in a world where trust is rare and information is power. It's rare for any series to turn economics into adventure instead of like necessary homework, but this one does it seemingly effortlessly, showing that real magic lies in quiet, ruthless, endlessly fascinating human game of value, trust, and the future. And now I want to talk about the slow burn romance of opposites. Now, if economics drives Spice and Wolf, then the romance between Lawrence and Holo is the heartbeat. At its core, this is a love story between two guarded loners who've spent years convincing themselves that they don't need anyone. Lawrence buries his vulnerability behind merchant logic, with every decision weighed, every risk calculated, every feeling kept at arm's length. Holo hides centuries of loneliness with sharp teasing, pride, and the playful cruelty of someone who's outlived every companion they've ever had. Their bond starts as a deal. She needs safe passage north. He needs a clever partner to beat the market. What grows from that contract is a mature, restrained romance. The show never rushes them. No dramatic confessions under cherry blossoms, no sudden kisses in the rain. Connection builds in small, quiet moments, shared meals, late night talks about money and meaning, the slow realization that the other one makes the road feel less empty. Jealousy flickers. Holo turns possessive when Lawrence flirts for a deal. Lawrence tenses when men notice her. It's never melodramatic. Confessions hover unspoken. They circle, test boundaries, but they don't fully cross them. This isn't endless will they, won't they? It's two people gradually seeing what we, the audience, already know, that they're good for each other. Their dynamic shines because they trade strengths and weaknesses. Holo is freer with physical affection. She leans on him, drapes herself over him, teases him with her tail. But she guards her heart fiercely, terrified of abandonment. Lawrence, however, stays physically distant, rarely touching first, keeping polite merchant space. Yet he opens emotionally sooner, admitting that he's lonely, his fear of failure, and how much he values her company beyond her ability to generate profit. Each takes steps that the other one can't yet make. Their relationship grows unevenly, humanly, two guarded souls slowly lowering shields without dropping them completely. And all of this is unfolding under the church's watchful eye, a constant threat. An unmarried couple traveling together already draws suspicion. A pagan wolf deity with a human merchant is outright heretical. Their romance isn't just personal, it's a quiet defiance. Spice and Wolf never forces a grand climax here. It doesn't need one. The payoff comes in accumulated small truths, a shared glance, an offered hand, the choice to keep traveling together even after the deal ends. They don't complete each other like a fairy tale. They simply make each other's world less solitary. In a genre packed with destined soulmates and instant passion, this slow earned intimacy feels like the truest love story of all. Then let's talk about the pagan versus the modern world. Spice and Wolf is more than just this merchant and a wolf goddess earning coin and falling in love on the road. At its core, it's a collision, an old world of gods, spirits, and natural cycles meeting a new one that's ruled by coin, contracts, and the church. Holo the Wise Wolf stands on that fault line, a living remnant of pagan belief in a landscape that is turning its back on her kind. Villages once prayed to her for good harvests. She guaranteed the wheat and barley that turned fields gold. Now they fear her as a demon or a devil's familiar. Hints from characters like Diana and Rogoro's tales suggest other spirits are fading, hiding from the church's rising orthodoxy. One God, one truth. Anything older or wide older has to be erased. Clergy shadow nearly every town. Holo faces constant danger, not for crimes, but just existing for what she is. Her journey to Yoitz isn't just a homecoming, it's a search for any place left in the world with room for her. Magic ebbs from nature. Alchemists shift from wizards to proto-scientists, chasing understanding through measurement and profit, not reverence. Now, the show never pretends one side is safe. The old world brings real wolf attacks, storms, floods, honest in their unpredictability, but dangerous. The new world brings rigged markets, false ledgers, and contracts faced with traps. Eve betrays Lawrence over 60 gold coins. Lawrence and Holo debated endlessly. She romanticizes the old ways. He argues the market, flawed as it is, always lays its rules bare. You can lose everything, but you knew the game. Paganism gave wonder and terror in equal measure. Modernity offers calculation and control. Now, the show doesn't choose sides. It watches the transition. Holo is a goddess without worshippers, a wolf losing its forest. Her path isn't about reclaiming the past. It's about finding a way to survive the present and hopefully the future. The quiet question, can the ancient endure the modern, hangs over every deal, every talk, every mile they ride. The answer isn't spoken, it's lived. So if you like lycanthropes, like, share, and subscribe. Contribute your thoughts and additional observations in the comments below. Let me know what I missed or what you noticed. Next, I plan on discussing True Blood from 2008 through 2014. Keep your eye on the moon, a silver bullet in the chamber, and we'll see you back next episode.